Hello, my name is Max Eramin and I'm a photographer and I'm also a camera collector, camera repairman and camera reseller. Today we're going to talk about Ansco Flash Clipper, which is a camera that was manufactured by Ansco between 1930s and 1950s. Ansco is a company that originally started out as a daguerreotype lab. However, over time they started to manufacture their own film and their own cameras. Uh, it went through some name changes over its history. At one point, it united with a German company, Agfa, and it was known as Ansco Agfa. Then it was changed its name to GAF, GAF, and that was known as that. And then it switched back to Ansco until 1977, when it was just sold and became just a brand name, which now can be attached to any product, no matter what their quality is. So what Ansco is nowadays, I have no idea. Just a name, as far as I know. So this particular camera is a medium format point and shoot camera. So at the time, medium format was a standard film type, just as common as a 35 millimeter in the 80s and 90s. So it was not unusual to see medium format point and shoots. In fact, they were way more common than 35 millimeter point and shoots. So this particular one opens up like this. So as you can see, it has metal box that comes out of the camera, and then you can push it on the sides and push it back in. The camera actually does not work when it's pushed in, so that it becomes more compact for transportation. It has a nifty little handle like this that you can that's good for carrying, really not good for, it's actually not very good for anything, but it's there. So when it's open, you can you have some control over a few things. In my particular model is very simple. The only control it has is switch between I and B, so instant or bulb mode. So I can make one quick exposure, roughly 1/40th of a second probably, or I can push and hold the shutter release, and that will just keep the shutter open for as long as I'm holding it. So that's good for long exposures, dark environments, special effect photography and such. So this particular one, so this is a flash clipper, because there's also Ansco Clipper without the word flash in it, and that would not have those little two contacts that would trigger the flash. The proprietary flash that was available for this camera, I do not have it, but honestly, since it operates on those non-reusable bulbs that you just use once and throw away, I'm not really sweating the fact that I cannot use it, because I don't really care to throw away that many bulbs. So if I really wanted to use it with the flash, I could use it as a special effect camera by, for example, putting it on a surface, pushing it and putting it in a bulb mode, opening the shutter, manually flashing my flash at my subject, and then closing the shutter. If at that same time I would actually move the camera, I potentially could use some shutter dragging effects and stuff like that. So it can be used for some creative lighting with manually triggered flash, which is what you could easily do. Or, I mean, considering the fact that it's a pretty small aperture camera, so this is, if I'm not mistaken, f/22. Some models of this camera are available where you choose between f/16 and f/22, where f/16 is reserved for color photography and f/22 for black and white. But it's really for back in the day, because back in the day, the color films that were available were very, very slow. So they were very low ISO, so you needed the slightly bigger aperture. While the black and white films could sometimes would go to up to ISO 400, which was, and then they could get away with a small aperture, so f/22. But realistically, just remember that black and white, when you have a selector between color and black and white, all that means is that the color one is going to be slightly wider, so one stop wider aperture than the black and white. In some models, it also has a built-in yellow filter, which is specifically for black and white photography. Yellow filter that is built in makes things a little more contrasty, so it darkens the skies a little bit, lightens the foliage a little bit, makes skin tones a little, less pronounced, skin tones more natural. Sorry, not less pronounced, a little more natural in black and white. I would certainly not recommend it to use it in color, because in color photography, obviously the only thing it will do is will actually just give yellow tone to everything. So, my particular model does not have any bells and whistles like that. All it has is that switch between bulb mode and instantaneous. On some models, I know that the switch for B and I is on top. It still does the very same thing, so it does not really matter. The little foot on the bottom is actually quite handy. Without it, it would tip forward if standing on a table. But with this little foot right here, it actually is convenient because you can put it on a straight surface and hold it. Since it does not have a tripod shoe, it's convenient that you can at least put it on a flat surface for any kind of long exposure usage and stuff like that. It does have a cold shoe. Cold shoe, for those who are not familiar with the term, it simply means that it does not have any wires running directly to the shoe here. So you can put a modern flash here, but it would not communicate with the camera in any way. It will be just sitting there. And so theoretically, you could find a way to attach and figure out the way to trigger the camera with those contacts, but I just really do not see the point per se. It is kind of fun to use it just on a sunny day outside as is, or in the dark environment, as I mentioned, just have a manual flash and use it in combination with the bulb mode to get creative with this camera. The other controls that it has is, of course, the winding mechanism for the film. Now the film is a little weird, so we need to mention that. So the film it uses is 616. 616 is one of the earlier medium format films created by Kodak. So it was created in 1899. So the 120 standard medium format that we use now was created just a couple of years later. So this is the spool for the 120 film. This is the spool for 616 film. As you can see, there's a little bit of a size difference, but that's really the only difference. It's just it's a little wider. 616 film is 70 millimeters wide. So on eBay, you can easily pick up this little 3D printed adapters that simply go inside the 120 film like this on the side and make it as big as the 616, and then you can simply use 120 film in your flash clipper. As you can see right here, I have on the one side I kept the original 616 spool, and on this one I put the one with the adapters. So obviously if I was using it, both the intake and the new film would be here, would be the new 120, fresh 120 film would go in here. Actually no, fresh would go right here, and then the intake spool would be right here. You can always tell where the intake spool is. I mean, it seems self-explanatory, but for those who don't know, the intake spool is wherever the winding mechanism is. Wherever the winding mechanism is, that's the intake. So you put fresh film on the other side, the intake spool goes here, and you slightly wind it, close it, and it will be ready to go. Of course, since the 616 film is a little wider, when you use 120 film with adapters in this camera, you will be losing the top and the bottom of each frame. So when you're framing your subject in the little tiny viewfinder that this camera has, just keep in mind that it will be a little more squarey because you'll be losing the top and the bottom of the frame. This particular camera makes slightly rectangular frames. So basically, with those adapters, with 120 film, it'll be kind of a little more square rather than rectangular. The camera should make it was designed to make 16 exposures on the roll of 616, so I assume it would probably still make 16 exposures on a roll of standard Y20. So there you have it. If you have any questions, comments, please comment below. So this is just a quick overview of this little jam, and I welcome any critiques you might have. Thank you.